How toxic is sports betting, really? Today, let's skip the strategies, the win rates, the odds analysis. Let's just sit down like two old friends and talk about how it eats you alive. Step by step, from the inside out, from your mind to your body, until there's nothing left but a hollow shell. Let's rewind to over 30 years ago, 1990, a completely different era. Back then, American professional sports were like knights guarding a sacred temple, treating legal gambling as a monstrous flood that could defile the sanctuary, a demon that had to be walled off with the highest, thickest barriers. I remember it clearly. The NFL commissioner at the time, a tough-as-nails guy named Paul Tagliabue, stood at a Senate hearing with a gravitas that felt like he was declaring a holy war. He said their mission was to protect the integrity and character of our games. Back then, sports and gambling were like water and fire, absolutely incompatible, a chasm between light and darkness that could not be crossed. What were they afraid of? It wasn't just about the fairness of the games. They feared a deeper corrosion, a world where every pass, every shot, every home run came with a price tag, where the pure, heart-pounding soul of sports would be tainted by the stench of money. They feared that the stakes of a bet would outweigh the outcome of the game itself, that fans would cheer not for a brilliant goal but for a winning wager. They feared that a kid who loved sports would grow up talking not about their idle skills, but about whether they could beat the spread in the next game. Look at the world now, 30-some years later. Everything we feared didn't just happen. It exploded into reality in ways more cynical than our worst nightmares. Those warnings from back then sound like a forgotten joke from some ancient era. That cold glass screen in your pocket is a 24/7, never-closing super casino. No need for a physical building or a dealer shuffling cards. The algorithms are the slickest bookies you'll ever meet. Over, under, moneyline, point spreads, corner kicks, even who's throwing the next out-of-bounds ball or whether the next free throw will sink. It's all fair game for a bet settled in seconds. You're no longer a fan watching the game. You're a trader glued to fluctuating odds, your emotions riding the roller coaster of that jagged line on your screen, your heart tethered to invisible data strings. You're betting on every moment's life or death, every heartbeat tied to a dollar won or lost. In 2018, a Supreme Court ruling ripped open Pandora's box, unleashing a demon that had been carefully locked away for decades. It no longer needed to lurk in the shadows of Vegas or Atlantic City. It came straight to your phone screen, into every living room, every kid's bedroom, through fiber optics and cell towers. Today, 39 states plus DC have legalized sports betting, and scenes we used to see only in movies are now just another part of daily life. This month alone, March Madness college basketball racked up over $3 billion in bets. Tell me what's truly mad, the games or the greed-fueled frenzy of human nature. The leagues that once swore to protect the purity of sports have done a 180, signing billion-dollar deals with betting companies. Their logos now sit side by side with gambling ads in the center of the court, plastered across the most prominent spots in broadcasts. This isn't just business. It's full-on collusion. The NCAA, which once fought tooth and nail against sports betting, is now spending its own money on ads, not to promote sportsmanship, but to beg losing bettors not to harass college athletes, most of whom are just 18 or 19 years old. Think about that for a second. What a ridiculous, tragic reality. Only losers harass college athletes over lost bets. Behind that line are countless young kids chasing basketball dreams, bombarded with thousands of death threats and vile curses on social media over a meaningless missed shot or a botched free throw. Their family's personal info gets doxed, their private lives put under a microscope. This isn't sports anymore. Everything about sportsmanship, grit, teamwork, honor has been stripped away. It's become a greed-driven digital plague sweeping the nation, and every one of us is a potential carrier, at risk of being sucked in every time we unlock our phones. I know a guy named Jacob, now a therapist specializing in gambling addiction. A man who climbed out of hell and chose to stand at its gates, trying to pull others back from the edge. There's a calm in his eyes, the kind forged in fire. He told me that just before we sat down to talk, out of professional habit, he checked his phone and saw he could bet on a ping-pong match happening at 3 a.m. in the Czech Republic. Do you get how terrifying that is? You're not even betting on the final outcome of a match. You're wagering on which of two players, whose names you don't know and whose faces you'll never see, will score the next point. A bet, from the moment you hit confirm to the result, takes just 15 seconds. That's what kids today are playing with. This isn't gambling in the traditional sense. It's a precision-engineered, high-frequency digital drug that delivers an instant dopamine hit. Its addictiveness far surpasses any old-school betting because it preys perfectly on the most primal human weakness, the craving for instant feedback. Your brain gets locked into a stimulus-reward or stimulus-punishment cycle every 15 seconds, then dives right into the next one. Turns your mind into a lab rat, frantically running between a shock button and a food pellet until you're utterly exhausted, incapable of rational thought. Jacob sees through it all, dissects the logic so clearly, because he was once this drug's deepest addict. He used to be a respectable lawyer with a social status and income anyone would envy, the kind of guy you'd think was too strong-willed to be controlled by anything. But he told me with his own story. Gambling stole my mind, my soul, my body, and the basic decency and dignity I had as a member of society, a husband, a father. In the face of gambling addiction, everyone is equal. It doesn't care about your education or your IQ. It finds the weakest crack in your soul. Maybe it's emptiness, maybe it's stress, maybe it's greed, and burrows in, takes root, and grows until it blows you apart. To pay off gambling debts, Jacob started dipping into his clients' trust funds, going from a defender of the law to its violator. He vividly recalls the internal battle the first time he crossed that line, the voice of justice screaming in his head, but the devil inside whispering, "It's fine, just this once. I'll win it back in the next game, and no one will ever know." That lie, he told it to himself hundreds of times, each time as seductive as the first. Luckily, at his darkest moment, he met a judge who saw through it all, writing in the ruling that this was a disease, not just moral failure. The judge gave him 8 years of probation with a mandatory condition, ongoing addiction treatment. That judge told him, "This doesn't have to be the end of your story. In fact, one day, you could use your experience to do something, to help others stuck in the same mire." So now, Jacob stands up, using the ugly scars on his soul to warn those about to step into, or already drowning in, this abyss. He says it's a dark universe expanding at an exponential rate. Last year alone, legal sports betting in the US hit nearly $150 billion. And whose pain fuels this massive industry? Who's their ideal customer? Young men. A Siena College study shows that nearly half of American men aged 18 to 49 have at least one active sports betting account on their phones. Legally, you're supposed to be 21 to bet, but in reality, that barrier's as flimsy as paper. High schoolers, 15 or 16 years old, are openly discussing their bets in school hallways, over lunch tables, analyzing which team's spread is the safest. It's become a normal part of teenage life. How do they do it? Easy. They use their parents' IDs, their older siblings' driver's licenses. In this anonymous online world, faking a legal adult identity takes minutes. When a kid, whose mind isn't even fully formed, gets hooked on this intense stimulation, their worldview and values get warped from the start. Gambling addiction's destruction doesn't discriminate by age or class. I've seen a guy named Marcus, a once successful, happily married, middle-aged man. He pointed to his bed, eyes hollow, and said, "When I was deep in it, this bed was my entire world. My marriage didn't matter. The bond I'd built over a decade was worthless to me. My career didn't matter. The achievements I'd worked half my life for, I could toss aside without a thought. My daughters didn't matter. Their laughter and joy couldn't penetrate my gambling-obsessed brain. One time, my youngest came running to show me a drawing, and I didn't even look up, just mumbled something to brush her off because I was watching a live Ukrainian basketball league game, deciding whether to chase a second-half spread. In that moment, I didn't just miss her smile. I missed a piece of her childhood. Only gambling, only those flickering numbers on my phone screen, mattered. Sound familiar? For a true gambler, winning feels great, sure, but the high fades fast. What really hooks them is the action. That heart-pounding thrill of waiting for the outcome. The adrenaline rush coursing through their veins. That feeling, more than the money itself, is what drowns out all the worries and responsibilities of real life. Today's online betting platforms, powered by sophisticated AI and machine learning, exist for one purpose: to keep you betting. They're digital demons that know you better than your closest partner. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. From the NBA to European soccer to cricket in Asia, global events are seamlessly stitched together into a never-ending casino. One gambler told me he once bet on a cricket match in India that lasted 3 days. to not miss a single micro-event he could wager on. He barely slept, surviving on energy drinks and caffeine pills. He even bought an expensive waterproof phone case so he could keep betting while showering. Get it? Gambling had invaded the most private corners of his life. It wasn't entertainment anymore. It was his breath, his heartbeat, his God. And that phone? It was his portable altar for constant worship. That's the real magic of live betting. It's not designed for casual players. It's a tailor-made digital cage for addicts like us. Impossible to escape. This addiction is no different from heroin or cocaine. It devours everything in its path, sometimes with even more devastating immediate consequences. The data is cold but honest. Among all known addictions, gambling has the highest suicide rate, chillingly so. 1 in 5 diagnosed problem gamblers will attempt to take their own life. I once asked a young guy named Ethan if he'd ever reached that point. He looked at me with an eerie calm and said, "Yes, sir. I was ready. I'd accepted it, even spent an entire afternoon writing letters to my wife and parents, explaining why I'd come to this, begging for their forgiveness. I felt like a drowning man, and suicide was the only way to stop struggling, to find peace." Right before I was about to do it, I heard a knock at the door. It was my frantic father who'd called the police. His voice held no ripple of emotion. That calm born of ultimate despair was more chilling than any scream. And the betting companies, those trillion-dollar industry giants, they'll tack on a tiny, barely legible helpline number at the end of their flashy ads, zipping by so fast you can't read it. They'll offer responsible gambling tools in their apps, letting you set daily betting or deposit limits. But let's be real. Those are crocodile tears, carefully calculated to dodge legal and PR backlash. A true addict isn't going to be stopped by some self-imposed limit. They'll just open more accounts, use different platforms, find every way to bypass those flimsy restrictions. The brutal truth is, the people who lose the most, who are the most hopelessly hooked, are their best customers. It's an open secret in the industry. Over 80% of their profits come from the 15% of bettors who wager the most and lose the hardest. Their entire business model is built on our pain, our despair, our inability to quit. Their methods for luring and trapping you are honed to perfection. Risk-free first bet. Bet $5, get $150 guaranteed. Those are just appetizers. The digital dealer's first free hit. The most sinister, most vicious trick is something called a reload bonus. Picture this. You've lost everything in your account one night, you're crushed, done, swearing it's the last time, promising to delete the app tomorrow. Right at your weakest moment, your phone dings. A message from the betting company. "Don't go, buddy. We know you had a rough night. Deposit now and we'll give you an extra 50% credit. Let's win back what you lost together." It's the devil whispering in your ear, hitting your desperate need to break even with surgical precision, giving you a reasonable excuse to keep going. One of Jacob's patients compared it to the street dealers he used to know. They always knew when I was broke, about to go clean. Then they'd show up, acting like they cared, slipping me a little extra product to keep me hooked. For their most valuable players, the ones who lose the most, they roll out VIP programs. Ethan had a dedicated VIP customer service rep, a young guy whose voice oozed sincerity and warmth. He'd say it was all about giving Ethan a better, more exclusive experience. But in reality, Ethan told me, if I went a day without depositing or betting, my VIP rep would text or email me right away. They'd ask, in this super concerned tone, "Hey Ethan, where you at? You doing okay? We've got a special profit boost offer just for you. Come back and try your luck." Their favorite line was, "We miss you." They didn't miss him. They missed his money, his frustration, his desperate need to win it all back. That VIP rep wasn't his friend. He was the bookie's enforcer, making sure Ethan stayed at the table until he was bled dry. The betting industry loves to tout that only 1% of American adults have a serious gambling problem. First off, that number, provided by the industry itself, is likely lowballed. But even if we take it at face value, 1% is 2.5 million living, breathing people, 2.5 million potentially shattered families, sleepless spouses, kids growing up in fear and uncertainty. That's not a number to brush off lightly. Let's go back to 1990, to the moment before it all began. The Deputy Commissioner of Major League Baseball, testifying before the Senate, said something that, 35 years later, rings like a blood-soaked prophecy. When gambling on team sports is permitted, winning the bet may become more important than winning the game itself. 35 years ago, the old guard in the industry saw it all coming. They weren't just worried about a gambler losing a bet on a single game. They feared that when gambling's venom seeped into the bloodstream of sports through the all-pervasive internet, we'd lose an entire generation's pure love for the game. That terrifying prophecy has come true. Today, for so many, the outcome of the game on TV doesn't matter anymore. What matters is the real game, the one between you and the invisible bookie, the one that risks your entire life, your family, your future. And in that brutal game, there's one unshakable truth. The house always wins.